Hello everyone, this is Grandmaster Mark Paragua and welcome back to my channel. For today, we are going to discuss about the Smith-Morra Gambit. What are we going to do when someone played Smith-Morra Gambit? So let's start. E4, C5, D4, C takes D4, C3. So this is the move that I am recommending to you guys, which is D takes C3, accepting the gambit. Knight takes C3, Knight C6, Knight F3. So first things first, what we need to remember here. So we need to remember that whenever you played Knight C6 and then white has Knight F3, you need to play D6 first. We don't want to play Knight F6 immediately because of this move E5. Alright? So instead of playing Knight F6, we need to play D6 first. So after Bishop C4, we are going to play A6. Because if we played Knight F6 immediately, there is this move E5. E5. So after Knight takes E5, which is a blunder, after Knight takes E5, there is Knight takes E5, D takes E5, Bishop takes F7, and then Black will lose the Queen. If D takes E5, Queen takes D8, and then now if King takes D8, there is Knight to G5. So instead of Bishop C4, instead of playing Knight F6, we're going to play A6. Castle, Knight F6. Here, example, he played Bishop E3, which is not logical in the Smith-Morra Gambit because usually this dark square bishop goes on F4 or G5. So if they played Bishop E3, we will play B5. We are going to create a counterplay immediately on the queen side. So here, but after B5, there is this move, Bishop takes F7. You need to be very careful with this. So Bishop takes F7, King takes F7, there is E5. What is the idea? Because after E5, if we captured with a pawn, there is Knight takes E5. So as you could see on the arrow, these two squares are the squares for the king. Whereas after Knight takes E5, of course you cannot take this one because your queen on D8 is hanging. So if you move your king in any of the squares, you are going to lose the knight here on C6. And then if this knight on E5 could capture the knight on C6, white will be better. So instead of playing B5, it is just much better to play E6, just to solid your position. Queen E2, Bishop E7, Rook FD1, and then now we need to move the queen. Otherwise there is E5 in this position. So after Rook FD1, we want to move the queen on A5. We don't want to move our queen on C7 because once we move our queen on C7, there is Rook AC1, castle, and then sometimes there is like something like Knight D5 here, but of course not in this position. Maybe white will play Bishop B3 first, and then example, you play D5, there is this move, Knight to D5, which is a very strong move for white. So we need to avoid that. Because like E takes D5, you could play C takes D5. Like example, you played Bishop B7, there is D takes C6, if Bishop takes C6, then Knight D4. So this is the position or the move order that we want to avoid. That's why in this position, we want our queen to move on A5 square. So we don't need to worry about this rook a c1 followed by knight to d5. So here, let's go back, bishop e7, rook at d1, and then now queen a5. Okay, so here we will go on the next one. The next one will be queen e2. So this queen e2, when it comes to the Smith-Morra Gambit, this bishop c4, queen e2 followed by rook d1 is the most common or most logical setup for white. So if they play queen e2, now you could play bishop to g4. But remember, we need to avoid playing bishop g4 if the queen is here on d1. Why? Because once you move your queen, once you played bishop g4 and then the queen is here on d1, there is always queen to b3. Now I'm going to give you an example. We will go back the bishop e3 line that I just showed you earlier. If bishop e3, example, you played bishop g4, look at this move, queen to b3. So of course this is a blunder. Bishop takes f3, not really a blunder, but white will be better here, because after bishop takes f3, bishop takes f7, king to d7, and now there is this move, queen takes b7. So after queen takes b7, you are forced to move your queen c7, and then now there is a check, bishop e6. You cannot capture this bishop because of this queen, so the only move for the king will be king d8. So if you played king d8, you could just get this one, or you could just play bishop b6, and then now you're going to lose this one, this queen. Alright, so remember always that if you want to play bishop g4 followed by e6, make sure that the queen cannot go on b3, or make sure that if he played queen b3, he is not attacking these 2 pawns. Alright, so we'll go back now. We'll go back here, queen e2. So here in this position, you could now play bishop g4 because this queen cannot go here on b3. So bishop g4, rook d1, e6. And an example, he play h3. He cannot play e5 here, because if he played e5, you will just simply play knight takes e5. So if he played h3, okay, if he played h3, just simply take this one, just simply capture the knight, because if you play something bishop h5, there is maybe g4. If you played bishop g6 and then e5, and then now black's position is very dangerous, because look at this d file, and then now white breaks the e5. Whenever they capture this pawn, it will be very dangerous. So after h3, you will just simply take queen takes f3, queen takes f3, and then you could just play bishop e7 here in this position, or you could also play knight d7 here. So whenever they played bishop f4, you could always block with a knight here on the e5 square. So now white will play bishop f4. So if white played bishop f4, you are going to play knight h5 immediately attacking this knight. You don't want that this bishop could control this diagonal for a long time. That's why you need to act quickly by playing knight h5. So after knight h5, white will play bishop e3, and then now you'll have this move, knight e5. So here black is already better, because it's not only black is up a pawn, but after knight e5, aside from black is up a pawn, but the black's possession is very good, especially of these 2 pieces. Look at this, bishop and knight, trying to put pressure on this pinned piece, and also trying to eliminate this a good bishop here on c4. Okay, so let's go back. So that's it. So now, what if he didn't play queen e2? What if he played h3 to avoid bishop to g4? So after h3, what are you going to do is you will just simply do the normal development, or like a normal setup for black. E6, queen e2, b5, bishop b3, bishop b7. You need to remember that you are in the right sequence or development for black, otherwise you will be delayed. I'm going to explain it to you why you need to play b5 and bishop b7 immediately, because whenever the rook goes on d1, you have this queen b8. As I mentioned earlier, we are trying to avoid to put our queen on c7, because if this rook on a1 goes on c1, there is always knight to d5. That's why here queen b8, bishop f4, knight d7, like the setup that I just showed you earlier, that you want to control this e5 square with one of your knights. So knight d7, rook d2, trying to create a battery on the d file, bishop e7, rook a d1, and then now knight to d e5. So in this position, I don't see any problem now here for black, because after knight d e5 you could just simply castle, and then you could just improve your position, because here you are always up a pawn. Alright, so let's just go back. So now that is what are you going to play with h3. So here, what if this is the very critical position? So white decided to give up another pawn by playing b4. So here after b4, another pawn is added, or another white pawn is trying to sacrifice. So of course after b4 we don't want to take. Like here we could take here, because example, if he takes, there's queen b3, right? And now attacking this one and then this one. So instead of capturing here, now we will play bishop g4. So as I mentioned earlier, as I told you guys, that you don't want to play bishop g4 if the queen could go here on b3, but in this position it's a different position, because although the queen could go on b3, but the thing is, if white played queen b3, you could just simply play e6. Here in this position, there is no queen takes b7 anymore, right? Earlier, if this pawn is on a b2, of course, if you played e6, white will just simply take this pawn. But here, the pawn is on b4, of course, this b file will be blocked. Alright, so bishop g4, example, he played b5, he will take, bishop takes f3. If he played queen takes f3, which is a bad move or blunder, why? After queen takes f3, you'll have this move, knight e5. So after knight e5, this queen is forced to move here on e2, which protects this bishop. So, but after queen e2, you could just simply play rook to c8, and then now you are attacking these two pieces. You are attacking this bishop, and then whenever this bishop moves, you are going to take this knight. So after bishop takes f3, he's forced to play g takes f3. So after g takes f3, you will simply take. Example, he takes with a bishop, because if he takes with a knight, okay, yeah, he could takes with a knight, knight e5, bishop b3, keep the diagonal here, and then after bishop b3, he will play e6. So here in this position, I don't see any problem now for black. Now, let's say he played bishop a3, trying to get this pawn. So if they play bishop a3, you will just simply play bishop to e7. You don't need to worry about this d6 pawn, because whenever he takes, so if he takes, you could just play king f8, like here in this position. Okay, I know it is kind of scary because your king is uncastled, but now as you could see, this a3 bishop is hanging, and then now, okay, this knight is good, but I don't see any good plan here for black. And remember, if you had this position, remember this, not only in this opening, but whenever you see that like a double pawn and then you have a knight on e5, there is always a plan of playing g5 here to stops white f4. Alright, so now let's go back. What if he played bishop takes b5 instead of knight takes b5? So if he played bishop takes b5, we are going to change our formation or setup, which we could play g6. Alright, so g6, knight d5, bishop g7. If he played bishop b2, we will castle, knight takes f6, bishop takes f6, bishop takes f6, and then e takes f6. So in this position, black is better. Why? Okay, first is, even though this d6 pawn is weak, but this weakness is only temporary, because later on we could always find a way how we could push this pawn without losing this pawn on d6. And also, the reason why black is better here, because of the kingside pawn structure. As you could see, this double pawn, this pawn is weak here on h2. We could always maybe find a way how we could attack this f3 pawn by moving, or like try to find a way how we could move this queen. It's either here g5 and h4, and then playing knight e5 followed by rook a3. So this is Smith-Morra, like Smith-Morra Gambit, like the way how you could counter the Smith-Morra Gambit is a very short video, but I hope you've learned something. So that next time whenever someone played against the Smith-Morra Gambit against you, you don't have anything to worry, because you will had because you got a good and solid response, or like counter against the Smith-Morra Gambit. So thank you so much. Thank you to those who keep supporting my channel, and also who keep viewing my videos. I hope you liked most of my videos, and I'm trying my best to improve my videos and give you some very serious or informative guides or openings. Thank you so much, and bye.